You're listening to Shoe In, covering the ins and outs of all things footwear, from sneakers to heels, loafers to slippers, and every type of shoe in between. Brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. And now your footwear insiders, Matt Priest and Andy Holt.
Folks, welcome back to Shoe and Show. We have a great guest today lined up to talk a little bit about a different type of conversation on shoes, right? We always just shoot the breeze about shoes that are going on, but we actually have an expert that's going to help us sound much better than we normally are.
That's right. That's right. We have someone who's going to really class up the joint, if you will. So I'm really excited about it. Not that Jasmine doesn't class up the joint every time she's here. Welcome, Jasmine. You do what you can. It's a heavy lift with us, right? So I'm so excited about our guest, Elizabeth Semmelhack, who is the senior curator at the Bata Shoe Museum in Toronto. She's also an author. She's written the book Out of the Box, The Rise of Sneaker Culture, which is prominently displayed on my coffee table in my office.
Nice.
As my colleagues can attest to. She's also written The Heights of Fashion and History of the Elevated Shoe, and most recently a book, The Shoes, The Meaning of Style. We are so honored and privileged to have you with us, Elizabeth. Welcome to the Shoe and Show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's our pleasure. It's you're someone who's out there in social media, and you're an author, and you run a prominent. You're the curator of a prominent museum, the Bata Shoe Museum. For our listeners, our sneakerheads, and our shoe obsessed listeners, why don't you kind of walk us through, in a nutshell, what the Bata Shoe Museum is there in Toronto?
Yeah, well, the museum started. Even the idea of the museum started a long time ago with Mrs. Sonia Bata. She likes to say that she got into the shoe business by marrying a shoe man, Mr. Thomas Bata. And she began to travel the world with her husband. This was in the late 40s, early 50s, and she made a rather astute observation, which was that no matter where she went, Bata had factories around the world. The traditional footwear worn by people around the world was so different, even though the human foot was basically the same no matter where she went. So she thought, this is sort of interesting. I wonder what kind of information, cultural information, can be gleaned by thinking about why there are so many different types of footwear. And so she started to collect. And next thing you knew, she had thousands and thousands of examples, and for a long time that collection was kept at the Bata Shoe organization, which was headquartered here in Toronto for a while. And then finally in 1979, the Bata Shoe Museum Foundation was established to really promote field research and publication. And then at the urging of her first curator, Alika Weber, she decided to really make a public museum. And so the museum, as it is now, a specially built building, opened in 1995 to the public. And we have about 13,000 artifacts. We have the largest moccasin collection in the world, probably the largest circumpolar collection in the world, and a healthy selection of shoes from other cultures. And so, we're open to the public, and it's an amazing institution.
Tell everyone, Toronto's a big city. It's a dynamic city. It's got a lot of cool neighborhoods and enclaves.
It's an awesome city.
It's an awesome city. Where exactly is the museum located?
We are exactly located on the corner of St. George and Bloor. So the Bloor Street corridor, that's where the Royal Ontario Museum is. That's where sort of the high-end shopping is, and it is a beautiful location, very easy to get to on public transportation, as well, of course, if you're driving. And we're open every single day of the year, with the exception of Christmas and Easter. Or no, actually, Christmas and Good Friday.
So folks can go to...
Anytime you come, you can go.
Yeah, so folks can go to the Bata, take a look, get inspiration, and go high-end shopping to buy their shoes.
That's right.
I see the setup. Perfect.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy to buy more shoes. Now, Elizabeth, let me ask you this. What is the oldest pair of shoes that you have in the museum?
The oldest pair is 4,500 years old, and it comes from ancient Egypt. We do have quite a few examples from ancient Egypt. Most of them are funerary. The ancient Egyptians believed that you actually needed to take it with you when you went, and so burying people with everything that they would need in the afterlife, including footwear, was a common practice. And so the oldest pair we have is actually a funerary pair, and so quite old.
What's the newest pair?
The newest pair, I just got a pair. They're amazing. I don't know if you know or remember Tom Mix, the cowboy from silent film. He was probably one of the most popular movie stars in the 20s and into the early 30s. And so at that time, there was this urge, sort of World War II starting to brew, and there was this push around the globe to reclaim national identity. And so in the United States, there was a push towards trying to figure out what that meant for us. And one of those things was sort of the focus on the cowboy. And so making little kids' cowboy boots was sort of this trend. And so I got a pair of little boys' Tom Mix inspired cowboy boots, and they're amazing.
That's very cool. So tell us a little. I think it's intriguing that the museum is kind of dedicated to seeing the world through shoes, and I think that's an amazing kind of mission that you guys have, is helping connect cultures and connect people by looking at their shoes. So tell us a little bit about some of the research that is done at the Bata Museum. What kind of researchers do you have, and what kind of research do they do on behalf of the museum?
We're really small, and so
Sure.
I'm the researcher.
We know that feeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Having said that, I mean, over the years, Mrs. Bata has turned to other scholars. And so before my time, and this is sort of when the idea of creating a standalone museum was being sort of bandied about, she began to work with Professors Jill Oakes and Rick Rewe, who are from the University of Manitoba. And they, along with Mrs. Bata, sort of conceived of this plan that they would visit, those two would visit all of the circumpolar countries in the world and work with indigenous women to find out how their footwear, how they made their traditional footwear, why they made it, who they made it for, and to collect not just the footwear itself, but all of the skins, all of the tools, as well as the stories of these individual seamstresses. And so I think that has been really one of the cornerstones of the museum. And I think that this work will actually be incredibly important as we move forward. One of the challenges I have as a curator there is that, as I said, we have one of the largest moccasin collections in the world, and some of those are quite old. They date back to the 18th century, predominantly from the 19th century. But when they were collected as kind of quote-unquote Indian curiosities. And the collectors didn't care who the woman was who made them, why she made them, what the symbolism was, what the inspiration was for making all of those shoes. And so that's left for later generations, me and others, to try to unravel. And so I think that having collected the circumpolar collection with this idea of speaking directly with the makers and preserving that information will really serve in the future, the public in the future. And she's also worked with Professor Dorothy Koh at Columbia University on Chinese foot binding, and she's also sent researchers to India and to Mongolia. And so all of this research, I think, will be preserved and is there for future researchers as well to make use of.
That's really neat. She has a passion, it seems, for the foundation or the stories that drive the creation and the production and the craftsmanship of all these different types of shoes. And it's not just surface level kind of fashion, if you will, which is obviously very important to our world, but from a kind of societal development, there's a lot more to it, and it seems like she has a passion for that.
She absolutely does, and I think that's why I've been doing my job for close to 18 years, and haven't run out of questions to ask about footwear. And, I think that that simple observation that she made, which is the human foot really is basically the same around the world, and yet we use footwear around the world to establish such a wide variety of things, from gender, status, employment. And so, by looking at other cultures and asking those questions, you glean a huge amount of information. But I think what I've been doing in my position is asking those exact questions of Western footwear. And so, fashion is never tangential to larger cultural issues. And what we put on our feet is never something that's not embedded in larger cultural issues.
So I'm on the website and I'm looking at it, and I see that there's a temporary closure in early January, and you guys are doing some renovations to launch some new exhibits in 2018. What can people expect if they make a trip there in 2018? What kind of exhibits are you guys focusing on this year?
Well, one of the things that's nice about the institution is that we have 3 temporary gallery spaces, so I'm able to change exhibitions quite frequently. And we also have a large permanent gallery, and the renovations are actually happening within that large permanent gallery. So if you come to the museum in 2018 and you visit the permanent gallery, you will see sort of an introduction to why footwear can be interesting, how footwear can express these larger social concepts. And it also, the new aspect of that gallery, the second floor of it, will focus on our collecting and our storage. It's a story that we haven't actually told in depth before, and it will address sort of the founding of the museum, who Mrs. Bata is, et cetera. And then in the 3 temporary galleries, we have one exhibition that is going to be up for a little while. It's on the Circumpolar collection. We actually put it in honor of our 20th anniversary, and we're going to leave that up for a little bit longer than normal because it does really well with school groups, and it also does really well with people who've come to Canada as tourists. And then the other 2 galleries, the Fashion Victims exhibition, which is currently on the 3rd floor, which looks at the pleasures and perils of dress in the 19th century. And in it, I, along with my co-curator, Allison Matthews-David, looked at the introduction of poisonous chemicals into fashion and the shifts that industrialization brought to the shoemaking industry. And
we know all that very well. We know all that, about that very, very well.
And so we explore that in some depth. That exhibition is going to close in May, and we are going to open up an exhibition on Manolo Blahnik. It's a traveling exhibition. We never take traveling exhibitions. We make traveling exhibitions, and so this is going to be a very interesting experience for me. And so this exhibition is a traveling exhibition, so that will be showcased on the 3rd floor gallery. And then the smaller 2nd floor gallery across from the Arctic exhibition, the gold exhibition that I just opened right before Christmas will remain until the end of 2018. And that looks at the use of gold in footwear around the world.
So Trump's visited?
That was something I thought about doing the gold exhibition. Was I thought the time is right for a myriad reasons.
Oh, speaking of traveling exhibitions, let me ask you this: are there other museums like this in the world that are doing what you guys do, or is this unique to our industry from a global perspective?
The answer is yes to both. We definitely have sister institutions which are fantastic. There's the Northampton Museum and Art Galleries, which has a shoe museum component that is fantastic. They themselves are going through an amazing transformation, and they have an incredible collection, and they also they're in Northampton, which is the center, or was traditionally the center of shoemaking in Britain. And so they do a wonderful job of telling the story of local shoemaking traditions, as well as have an impressive collection. There's also a museum in Romans, France, which is just south of Lyon. And it, too, has a very interesting collection. It's a little bit off the beaten path, but anybody who has the opportunity to visit that institution should. And there are a few other smaller collections in various places. There's one in Belgium. There's one in Russia, although it's only available online, which also has some very interesting shoes. And so I think what makes us unique is that not only are we have this substantial collection, but we are actively collecting, and we do have this dedicated building where we're constantly changing exhibitions. And so I think and we are untethered. We don't have to tell the story of local shoemaking. We share the Bata name, but we have nothing to do with the Bata organization. Mm-hmm. We're not a corporate museum in any way. And so I think that we are very dynamic and active in what we're doing. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a blessing being here.
Yeah. So there's a lot of thought that goes in that. This is not just Mariah Carey's closet that has 20,000 shoes in itself.
Imelda Marcos's closet.
Exactly.
No.
These are people.
We do have Imelda Marcos's shoes. But what's so boring is that she actually didn't have that many, and they all basically look the same.
Yeah. I used to have in my presentation how she had to put out a press release denouncing the fact that I can't remember all the numbers, but basically...
I think it was 2,000 shoes.
Yeah. I don't have 5,000 pairs of shoes. I only have 2,000 people.
Right.
Down.
I do think it's very interesting, and I think you guys have a great mission because I believe it was last May, we had a summit here, one of our executive summits, and our former chairman, Rick Muscat, went through kind of the retail revolution in America starting in the 50s and 60s with department stores and kind of national chains, and then how that shifted and changed over time. And people are really fascinated with that because it gave them a second to pause and really think about their industry in a different way. It didn't, it took them back from looking kind of at what we all do. We work on a daily basis at the grindstone, and when we can pick up our eyes and think a little bit about our industry, it always makes us a stronger industry, and it probably corrects some of the mistakes that people might have looking back at historical trends and practices about how things can be more progressive and how we could probably shift and change the way we make shoes, produce shoes, and the styles and things like that. So congratulations to you guys for doing such a great job of preserving all those historical norms and practices of shoemaking and cultural issues that people typically don't think of in a way that they can interact with the product everybody uses every single day, but really brings it back to a core idea of cultures and how, even though our shoes are different, we're still very much the same when it comes down to it.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that makes me so happy to work with footwear is that, unlike, I'm an art historian by training, and I think one of the challenges that art museums face is people can walk into a museum and feel intimidated. The subject matter is maybe they feel they need a special education to really appreciate. They don't just get it. But I work with an object that every single person who walks into the museum has an intimate relationship with, and already knows that if they're a man, they probably aren't walking in a pair of red high heels for some reason. And if they're a woman, maybe they had to wear high heels for some reason, and that they have a knowledge about how already they use footwear in myriad ways to express aspects of themselves. And so I think it allows me to sort of cut to the chase and get right to sort of the heart of cultural issues. Yeah,
it's so true. We find the same thing when we're advocating on behalf of the industry here in Washington or globally, that everyone can relate to a pair of shoes no matter where they are in life or who they are.
Exactly.
And so to me, that's a lot of fun. So, one of the things I wanted to ask you, Elizabeth, is this just hypothetical. There's a fire at the museum. You got to grab 3 to 5 pair. What 3 to 5 pair of shoes are you grabbing to save in case there's a hypothetical terrible fire?
Oh, I have asked myself this question in the past. It really would be such a hard thing to do. I think that It's so funny because I know I'm not supposed to really have favorites, and yet I have these shoes
like
that I return to over and over again.
Yeah.
And so would I be, grabbing the Nizam shoes? I put the Nizam shoes in the gold exhibition. We have a pair that was worn probably by Sikandar Jah, who was the Nizam of Hyderabad around 1800. Could be that they date to a slightly later Nizam, but they are this incredible bejeweled pair of Mojari that are made with gold wire embroidery. They have gold sequins, diamonds, rubies, and emerald embellishment. I mean, they're so amazing, and they represent just one pair of his shoes. Can you imagine what the rest of them look like?
Oh my gosh.
I might take those.
Yeah. Lots of bling.
There's a pair of shoes that are from the 1920s that have sort of a pearlized leather. I've never seen anybody else use a leather like this. It looks just like mother of pearl. And the rest of it is kind of a gunmetal metallic gray. They look like the top of the Chrysler building. That's are cool. Incredible. I showed them to Christian Louboutin, and he was inspired by them for a shoe that he created in 2007 called the Cathedral Shoe. I'd probably take those. We also have one of my favorite sneakers is the Puma RS computer shoe, which was from 1986, designed by Peter Kavanagh. And what was so amazing about it was that it had a microchip in it. And so when you went running, it would, collect information about how far you ran. But then it had a plug at the back of, I think it's the left shoe, and you had to plug it into your recommended Commodore 64 to get the readout.
I'm looking at the ads right now.
And then use your dot matrix printer.
It isn't out of the box.
It also runs on 64K is what it says on the ad.
Exactly.
Unbelievable.
So I'd be taking that one. I could go on and on. There's a pair of moccasins from the 1770s from upstate New York that are so amazing. When I was a little kid, I'm American. I grew up in upstate New York, and I became really interested in the American Revolution, and I knew that the Six Nations sort of lived in my backyard.
Right.
And when I got to the museum and saw this pair of Mohawk moccasins, and realized that they dated to the American Revolution, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm holding something from this time period that when I was a little kid I was so interested in. And then I turned the moccasins over and I could see the footprint of the man who had worn them.
Wow.
And there was something that just collapsed history, right? It just made it so real. So
that is really cool. That is awesome. So one day someone will be holding Game Warden Jordans 200, 300, 400 years from now saying,
I'd like to have those in the collection.
I see the sweat.
Well, you know what this means, Andy? I think we got to take Shoeing on the road to do some shows at the museum. It's only like an hour flight up to Toronto, and I would love to take.
I am happy to be our own exhibition if you have space for us that people can come by and watch us tape live. We could probably also do a Brews and Shoes at the Bata, where we could raise funds for the museum there.
Yeah, that'd be fun
to do a one-day event, something like that.
Yeah.
That'd be very cool. We could definitely figure it out.
Yeah.
The Puma sneakers, that just, I don't know.
So
that was like the first,
time, right?
the first high-tech kind of chip in. And all it made me think of.
I know, they are amazing.
You know that movie from 92 called Sneakers with Robert Redford? So it was like,
it
made me think like the movie was about like these like high-tech, again, that was ahead of its time too. These like hackers, and it's called sneakers. It's all like tied in. And that's all I could think of is the Puma things.
They hung out in a lot of white vans outside of banks and stuff. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, exactly.
So, oh my gosh,
that's crazy. I don't know. It sounds like you guys have such a diversity of shoes. It's really, you could probably walk through for hours and keep seeing new and dynamic things. That's very, very, very cool. Is the museum?
Yes, it is such an amazingly varied collection.
Is the museum free for entry? Is there a fee for this?
There is a fee for entry. It's $14 Canadian for adults.
Okay, great.
And you can get more information about the museum at www.batashoemuseum.ca, so people can check out the museum online. And we'll post that link in the description of the episode. because that would be the fashionable thing to do.
That's
right,
right.
Andy?
Get educated, folks. Shoe education.
That's right. And so with that, let's get more educated as we bring in Jasmine for our Fashion Footwear in Focus segment. What's up, Jasmine?
What's up, Jasmine?
Hey, so I thought it was really cool that Elizabeth mentioned that they had a gold exhibit because metallic gold is starting to become like a popular colorway.
Really?
Yeah, like all of the major brands like Adidas or Puma are starting to incorporate that. So Puma has the really big popular platform shoes. They did a collaboration with Rihanna. Those were platforms. So now they're starting to kick those out in different colorways. They have a white and gold pair. Adidas All-Stars were really popular last year, still popular now. You usually see them in the black and white colorway, but now they're starting to have a gold and white colorway. And then even the Nike Cortezes, which made a really big comeback. They have like an all gold pair of those. They look like royalty on your feet, and
nice.
They have like black laces, and the soles are like black and white too.
Are these like PU? Is it like the plastic upper?
Yeah,
kind of
probably plastic.
I wonder if anybody's come like with the knitting that has like gold.
Gold.
Oh yeah,
That sounds
18
cool.
karat knitted in with it somehow.
Yeah, exactly.
And Reebok actually has that. I know you said that there's a shoe in your museum that is have like a pearlized finish. Reebok has ones that are gold and kind of have a pearlized finish more than metallic. So that's pretty cool too.
Interesting.
Are you rocking the gold or the metallic, Elizabeth?
I did buy a pair recently. Yes, that's true. I did. And one of the things that I thought was so interesting in the gold exhibition was just after the crash in 1929, gold footwear becomes the go-to footwear. And I thought, okay, that's really unusual, like sort of cruel, right? You know, the world's gone to hell, and next thing you know, fashion's telling everybody to run around in gold footwear.
Right.
And it turned out, when I read all of the advice columns, that it specifically because the economy was going to hell that gold footwear was being promoted, because gold functioned as a neutral.
Right.
That if you had one pair of gold shoes, you could wear that with every outfit.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And so I wonder if there's any connection.
There's some
Yeah,
correlation.
that sounds
Yeah, it makes you
interesting.
feel like royalty, like you said. Or, you know.
It makes you feel like royalty, but then you have to just wear the same pair of shoes over and over again.
That's right. That's terrible, actually.
Yeah.
More shoes, people. More shoes.
So, last question before we go. The museum is closed for the night. Are you trying on the shoes in the exhibitions?
Oh my gosh, I get that question all the time, and my answer is that Mrs. Bata probably hired me because I wear a size 10 and I wouldn't fit into barely anything in that
there you go.
museum.
No night
No,
at the
I would
museum.
never try on the shoes ever.
Oh, bummer.
I know.
Well, don't invite me because I might. No promises. Might have signed some disclosure or something and say I want, you know.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're planning on coming to the museum, you are?
Yeah, we're going to try to make it up there. You know what?
Yeah, okay, we'll have to make sure that I don't leave you alone in storage.
Exactly. Well, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing a bit about the museum.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And again, as Matt said, we'll post more information on this. But also just thanks so much for the work you do to help collect these stories, shoe stories from around the world and help explain kind of history and culture through shoes, which is really awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So, folks, with that, you are listening to Shoe In. You can follow us on Twitter, on Facebook. You can go to shoeinshow.com to get all the information about all of our prior episodes and our upcoming episodes. If you have questions, ideas, hit us up. Let us know what you want us to cover. And with that, this is Matt Priest signing off for Jasmine and Andy. Shoe In is out.
Shoe In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.